Chapter 16. At times, I enjoyed the solitude. My time was my own, and as often as possible when the autumn days were fine, I lay in the grass of the clearing and absorbed the heat of the sun, as though storing up for the cold ahead. With no one to see or tell me what to do, I had abundant time to think, and when I felt at peace, I reflected that my trials here were nothing in comparison to Jamie's hard labor. Surely my fears were no greater than his concern for me. Every time he came home, I forgot about my days and nights alone. There'd never been anything in my world like this man who teased me, kissed me, sang to me. I loved to help with his bath, cut his hair, button his shirt. Everything he did seemed designed to please me. He exhausted himself cutting and stacking wood. "I want to do better," he said, "because you are perfect." I worked harder, trying to be perfect, because he thought I was. When he complained about his work in the camp, I begged him to quit the company. "A man has to prove himself with men," he said. "That's what I'm doing. Someday I'll be a boss." "And then you'll like the work." He laughed. "I think the bosses hates it too, 'cause they're mean as hell." I laughed too, though I was sad that so many people hated their work. When he spoke of men who seemed friendly, I asked, "Do you have special friends?" "My pretty little wife is my special friend," he said. "But men, no. Men ain't like women, flocking together like hens. There's some in camp I respect and some I hate. It's best to be the same to all. The men likes my songs and my stories. If I don't like somebody, I do my best to keep my mouth shut." I hoped Jamie was not aiming too high, wanting to be a boss when he'd worked for the company only a few months. Whenever I felt a twinge of wanting, I told myself a person who wanted too much would never be satisfied. I sharpened the old man's meat knives, wondering if I'd be able to figure out how to cut up and preserve the deer. But weeks passed before Russell brought it, and then he'd cut, smoked, and dried strips of it for us. "Did yours with mine?" he mumbled, like the words were hard to get out. Better than showing me or having to talk with me, I was sure. He'd smoked and salted the hindquarters, and I hung my portion from a hook in the corner of the cabin. Another time, I went out in the morning and found a burlap bag full of apples and another of dried corn on the porch. I added the corn to our meager harvest in the corn crib, then spent the week cutting and drying the apples. Jamie was happy when he came home and saw the deer meat, the corn in the crib, and the dried apples hanging on the cabin walls. "It might just do," Jamie said. "We've made a good start. Someday we'll go where it ain't so hard to get along." Excited, I told him then about the letter I'd written to my uncle. "Sure," he said. "We might go to North Dakota or we might go somewhere else soon as the time is right." I knew we wouldn't move away now, with winter on the way, but I wondered if there might be a letter waiting for me in Winkler. Cautiously, I asked, "Could we go down to town next Saturday?" "That'll depend," he said. We didn't go to town the next Saturday. Jamie fell asleep as soon as he got home, but woke for supper. That night, he sang as we danced around the table. After that, we slept in a heat of satisfaction. Sunday, the wind brought a few flakes of snow, and Jamie piled more wood behind the cabin and carried in a load of kindling. Before running to jump on the train, he said, "I'll dream of you until I see you again. Dream of me." Through the week, I not only dreamed, I thought of him almost every moment. He'd made himself part of me, along with everything I'd touched in this place, and it all seemed good. I loved the scent of the earth after a rain, the murmur of my chickens as they settled for the night, the brush of air through the trees. I loved watching the changing sky. I realized that to live alone, a woman had to be attuned to everything around her. She also needed to be primed for change. A year ago, I hadn't met Jamie and I'd never been anywhere. Who could say what another year might bring? In my dreams, I saw a house in town, a house with neighbors and friends. In my dreams, I saw children. I had to believe this time would end and something better would begin. I would make it so.